Hi, I'm Lynn.
And I'm Amanda, and this is The Pursuit of Badasserie, the podcast.
This podcast is all about taking action and creating that badass business abundance and life that you want.
Where we share stories, laughs, wins, and epic fails to show you the whole picture of the entrepreneurial journey.
It's not just unicorns and rainbows, people.
Jump on and follow us through this raw and witty roller coaster,
where we get down and dirty and go behind the scenes of life and entrepreneurship.
Get on it,
get over it,
and get after it.
Hey, I'm Lynn.
And I'm Amanda. Welcome to The Pursuit of Badasserie, the podcast.
Yay! We are getting down and dirty and vulnerable with you guys. I had to convince Amanda to do a personal podcast. Not too much convincing, but definitely we want you to learn a little bit more about us. We are coming up on our year of podcasting. We've already had over a year of our first book written. And so we wanted to change it up a little bit. And we have some questions that different people have sent to us and that we've created amongst ourselves that we would just like for you to get to know us a little bit better. So I'll ask the questions and then we'll both answer. You ready for this, Amanda?
I'm ready as I'll ever be. Oh,
I'm wondering if we're going to learn more about each other because we know each other pretty damn well.
We do.
We do. Okay. So this one should be an easy one, but maybe not because I feel like my list is long. What do people misunderstand about you?
I don't think this is going to be a hard one for you because I think the number one, actually, I'm not even sure it's a misunderstanding. I don't. So for me, I think the thing that people misunderstand about me the most is that I am not a cold, icy, there's not a cold, icy cavity where my heart should be. There actually is a small, like little thing there that's a heart. And I say that lovingly and sarcastically because I have a reputation, and anyone who's ever worked for me or been around me knows this. I'm just a hard ass. Like I take things I come off very seriously. I'm very driven. And the number one descriptor people give me is intimidating or scary sometimes if they don't know the word intimidating. So I feel like that's just something that I have come to understand is that who people think I am. They think of me as being very like no nonsense, very business, very intimidating, and closed off to all emotion. And to the point where I had a client who I thought like I've been friends with her for probably 10 years. She worked for me. And it was only recently that she admitted to me that she was still terrified of me. I'm like, what? Like we've been friends. I stay at your house. Like we hang out. I know your husband. Like we hang out with him. Like you guys babysit my kid. So I thought that we were sort of over that, but she's like, no, like I was terrified of you the entire time I worked for you. I'm still a little bit scared of you. And I know obviously I'm a nice person. I mean, I have friends, so I'm not horrible, but I think that's the number one thing people think about me is that I am just, this scary. We used to call me the Wicked Witch of the West Side when I lived on the west side of Maui. Wicked Witch of the West Side. And throwing up my Maui gang symbols. No, so that's the number one misinterpretation is that I am just like this heartless, no emotions. I don't have emotions. I don't think about emotions. I don't want to hear about emotions, which sometimes is true. I'm not going to lie and say that I am an overly emotional person. But that's the misconception is that I don't have those things and don't want them or need them.
I would say that mine is similar, but not the same. I definitely, I get,
no one thinks you don't care. You're so nice. No one thinks you don't care.
Oh, people don't think that I'm nice. And that's the whole thing. Like, I know you think that I'm nice, but you see a different side. And I think that that's what it is. Like, we put people up on a pedestal. And actually, I just heard an amazing quote that will forever live with me. Every time that you put somebody up on a pedestal, you're allowing people to look down, Right. So, and I love that. And I can remember having different conversations, but essentially the misunderstanding is that I'm this, just like this, like intense bitch, which yes, some of that's true. However, I do have so much more to me. And those that have really, obviously, if you've been listening to this podcast, you've been seeing different aspects of me, but I am so dynamic in a lot of different ways that a lot of people don't see for a reason. One is because it's not their time to see it. They're not my person. They don't need to see it. I am not that person. I do wear my emotions on my sleeve a lot of times. Like when I don't like you, you definitely know. I'm thinking of an interaction I had not too long ago, and like they definitely know the feeling's not mutual, and that's okay. I'm going to respect you. I'm not going to be a complete dick, but I'm not going to engage in small talk conversation with you. And I think that that's one of the things I'll never forget. Actually, I'll give you a story. When I was area director of BNI, I had this woman in my chapter, and she was a local Hawaiian woman, and I loved her, and she had just this energy, and she also had just like this like rawness to her, and she was also a bitch in a good way as well. And we had a one-to-one. It was actually at my house on my lanai, and we started sharing about some of our history. And she was a domestic abuse survivor as well. And I shared like my side. And at the end, she's like, Lynn, I was saying people are afraid of me. I was so, and she didn't use the term afraid, but she's like, I thought you were just this like bitch who like everything, never did something bad happen to you or whatever. And she's like, I see a whole other side, because like I had empathy, and I showed her that side. And I have gotten better now, because I was definitely in a time in my life where I was breaking down some more walls and barriers to allow more people in. But I'm not this like, you can see, yeah, I'm going to take lead. I'm going to take control of the room. However, I will sit with you and cry with you if that is what's needed. If even for those that are the dicks that I don't care for, if you are in a space and I can provide that for you, that is not going to like cause more harm. A lot of times I sit with people and hold space with them, because at the end of the day, we all need somebody. And, but yeah, I feel like that's definitely a misconception. That's what I'm saying. It's same, but different. Like I definitely, yeah.
No, I mean, and I get like when my friend / employee, ex-employee, she even told me a story. She's like, yeah, there's so-and-so that works for you also thinks that you hate her. And I'm like, I don't hate her. If I hated her, she would know. Like I would have had a meeting with her. We would have already discussed my displeasure. Like, but if, no news is good news with me. And it just that she had this opinion of me being this hard ass, that she was afraid of me and was afraid that I was mad at her, even though I really was like, not ambivalent, but she hadn't done anything either positive or negative to attract my attention. And so she was just, I was like, I don't really know. She's new. I'm not mad or happy. Just
Yeah, it's interesting, the projections that, and we do the same, right? Like I was actually just analyzing like the idea that I had of someone until I started to see behind the curtains. And I really practice, if I haven't spoke about this before, I do truly practice consciously and subconsciously to see people for the whole of who they are. That's why I can have compassion for the people who are dicks, because they might be in a space where they need that compassion or that empathy, and they're not, their whole person isn't a dick, right? I mean, some, but anyway, seeing people for the whole of who they are, because we tend to project, we not only put on our own masks that we want people to see around us, either consciously or subconsciously, but also other people put masks on us that they need to see within us. And it's really interesting to navigate this. I mean, like I said, I can find different things, like the whole busy thing. People, this is a big misunderstanding. And this actually, we had a conversation, and I want to say we had a podcast around this. I know about busy, but the perception that people think that I'm just so busy, and I have to constantly knock that down, because it prevents me from getting clients. It prevents me from putting people in my prospect pool, because people think I'm too busy, or that they're not equal enough to be able to work with me. And these are actually good potential prospects. So that's like another misunderstanding, because we project, right? So we project, all of us project. And so, yeah, that would be our misunderstanding. Ready for the next question?
I am.
All right. Ugh. If you could have coffee with any historical figure, who would you choose?
Oh, this is a tough one.
I'm laughing
because
talking about this. This is hard.
this is really hard. My list is very long, and I actually kind of go through like, what side of me do I want to talk to someone about? So I know that sounds weird, that like I have multiple personalities, but we have different sides of ourselves. Like the business side of me wants this person, the like parenting side wants this person. But I think I'm going to fall onto, I just had another person in mind, didn't I? So, but I think I'm gonna fall upon my writing roots. I think as cliche as it is, I would love to sit down with like William Shakespeare. And I say that because he was such an influence on my younger years of like wanting to be a writer. And just that, I mean, he actually made up words, and like now we make up words and like they become words because of pop culture. But he like really was such a strong reason that so much of the English language exists, and just the epitome of 3,000 different remakes of his works. I just find his work so incredible. And there's a lot of like stories about, whether or not it was legitimately him and like where he got some of his inspiration. So I would love to sit down with Shakespeare. I know that's cliche, as somebody who was like, has a degree in English. I know it's cliche, but I'm just going to stick with it. That's my story.
I love it. Well, I am going to be the asshole here, and I cannot pick just one, but I'm going to give you the reason why. And so historical figures, when I was thinking about this, I'm thinking of like people who really were the change. And that's very much like, that is who I am. I'm be the change that I wish to see in this world. So like Nelson Mandela.
I knew you were going to say Nelson Mandela. That was on my list. I knew you were going to say Mandela.
Joan of Arc, Cleopatra, like all of these influential, pivotal people in history that really walk the walk, talk the talk to create this ripple effect of beautiful change in such adversity and such just like lack of support. They were the pioneers. They were the ones who went through some shit to come out the other side, like the Phoenix, right? And so there are so many of these individuals that are on my list that I would definitely, and that's why, like, it would be hard for me to like sit, and it kept me up a little bit last night, because I was like, well, who am I going to say? I'm like, I can't pick just one, but that's why.
This is like Lynn and Amanda's Excellent Adventure. We should go back in time in a phone booth, pick our people, bring them.
For real.
That'd be a super fun trip for a lot of reasons.
That would be. All right. So next question. Tell me about an influential person in your life and how they impacted you. Somebody you know.
So this question, the first thing I thought of, anybody who's been listening to this podcast this whole year knows this. The first person I thought of was actually a negative influence, which I thought was really interesting. That's when you pose this question, because she did give me the questions ahead of time. It's not like she's springing them on me. I hate them either way. So the first person I thought it was a negative influence, and just the way that I was spoken to as a young aspiring writer, and how this particular teacher made me feel like I was completely inadequate and would never amount to anything, and how it really shaped. And in those years, I was in like my bitter, angsty teenage years. And so I feel like a lot of the, we'll call it growth or development, maybe not growth, that I had was in this I'm going to prove you wrong stage. So I was so bitter about the way I was spoken to and how I was treated and how I was looked down on. And it shifted into this, I'm going to prove you wrong. And so for years, I had this angsty, like, every teacher is against me. Nobody really believes in me. I'm going to prove everybody wrong mentality. And it shaped a lot of, I was not a nice person for a very long time, because I was sitting in that mentality that people were against me. And I believed it because somebody who had no real reason to be against me. A teacher, like, I'm just one of their student of 1,000 other kids in my class. Like he had no reason to call me out. And so it really affected me in a way that made me feel like there was some truth to it, that he was right and that I wasn't going to amount to anything. And it was just this downward spiral. And so I think about that not often because I wouldn't give him the satisfaction. However, I still think of it because it really makes me adjust the way I speak to people now, because when I think of the way he made me feel, and yes, it ended up working in my favor in that I turned it around and made it like, I'm going to prove you wrong, but not everybody is like me and can turn a negative situation around to my betterment. Some people will take that to heart and it will sit there and stick with them. So it's really made me think about how I talk to people. And I'm not saying I'm always nice to people, because that is a big fat lie. I'm never always, words are hard. There's never a case where I can say that I am nice constantly, because that's not how people see me. That's not the persona I give off. However, that's something that has impacted me over the years, of how you treat people, what you say to people, and who am I to tell you your dream isn't really a dream, and to work on that. So it's a negative influence, but I mean, the ones I always talk about from a positive standpoint are my parents and just the work ethic. But that one's the first one I thought of when you mentioned that question, was just this negative teacher experience from my youth.
Yeah, it's interesting because I thought of a bunch of different people from like far past and even most recent, including you. Like, I feel like we've been extremely influential on each other's lives and like the path that we have definitely taken. Obviously, we have a business together, we have a podcast, we have books, more books to come. With that being said, and I'm actually writing about this in my personal book, because for those of you who don't know, I'm writing a personal book that should be out by the end of the year. But I talk a lot about the pillars of light that have been on my path. And one in particular was also a teacher when I was in college. And so when I was deciding on what my major would be, I really thought it would be in like the sociology, kind of like save the world, even though I thought Peace Corps, which is quite funny because I couldn't imagine myself in Peace Corps. But I mean, I can. But
we all went through a Peace Corps stage. Come on.
But I always had this inner need, and it's part of my process. But to save the world, I've definitely grown out of that and understand why I had that save the world mentality. But definitely in college, and but this teacher, we were actually at a gathering at her house, and she pulled me aside and she's like, Lynn, I see why you want to be like, you want to fix people's problems. You want to do this, but at the end of the day, you do not have the tools. And I'm afraid you won't have the tools in time to be able to actually not hold all of their trauma, hold all of their emotions. And I fear for your life. I feel that you won't live past the age of, and it was something like 24, 25 or something. She's like, I feel like you would like kill yourself. Like you wouldn't be able to handle it. And I am also, don't tell me what I can't do, because I'm going to do it harder. However, it really did. It shifted my course in like education. Not that I finished college, but I did change into like more business and speech communications after that. And but it forever changed, I think, my path, because if I would have stayed on that path, even if I would have survived, I feel like I would have always sat in the martyr role and not in the healing process. And it probably would have killed me, especially knowing what I know about my life now, going through cancer and all of that. Like, I don't know if I would have had the capacity in the way that I needed to have to be able to heal as much as I've healed if I were in that kind of that profession. And I feel like I'm forever grateful for her, even though that must have been just a hard conversation for her to have. And it was hard to hear at the time. I feel like it changed the course of my life, and it helped me really, really make a move to make the impact in the way that I was actually destined to make, and not in the self-sacrifice, is, that kind of martyr-ish way, which I feel like I would have leaned more into. So don't remember her name, but she was my sociology. I can remember what she looks like, but I don't remember her name. But yeah, she definitely impacted my life immensely. So Okay. Here's a fun one. If you had to eat one meal for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Pizza, hands down. Pizza can be done in so many ways. You could
And
do savory,
wine.
sweet, and wine. Well, yeah, but it's part of the meal. I mean, maybe if I had to choose between just wine or whiskey, though, that would be a tough one. Oh, mm,
Yeah.
that would be a
We can
tough
come
one.
back to that. That we can come back to that one. Mine would be sushi.
Pizza, definitely though. What's yours?
Mine would be sushi. I think I could
Nice.
eat. There's a little sushi place, guilty pleasure for those of you listening in Bangkok. I live in the heart of Bangkok, but there's this a mall at the end of my road, which I think in Bangkok, there's a mall at the end of every road. There's so many malls here, but they have a little sushi belt, and I go there probably 2 to 4 times a week because I typically only eat one meal a day, sometimes two, but yeah, it would be sushi. And then Middle Eastern or Mediterranean, some kind of meal like hummus-ish kind of would be the next one. But sushi, hands down. I love sushi. Love it. The more wasabi, the better.
The rest, I mean, yeah, of course, you can't have it with wasabi. Is like you have to. That's the only thing you can. How could you not like wasabi and sushi? It just makes me it makes me question you as a person, honestly, if you don't like wasabi.
Same. And the ginger. I love the ginger.
Of course.
All right.
What are we, amateurs?
Yes. Next question. What would be the title of the book about you if your worst enemy wrote it? And the reason why I put this one in there is because since we're both authors, obviously we're co-authors, and we're both writing our independent books, which is still hard for me to accept that I'm an author. It's a whole other story. So what's the title of the book if your worst enemy was to write it?
I think it would be that, and then just a bunch of emojis and like exclamation point, @ hashtag, $, %. It would be, I think that would exclamation. So, I think that it would mostly just be expletives written in another way. That's what I feel like my enemy would say. She wouldn't be able to form a coherent thought.
She's a she.
I name no name. There are no names to be named. I don't think no, I definitely think it's a she. I can think of a few men who are mad at me, but they were in the wrong, so it's fine. It's their fault.
Yeah. I thought about this, and actually I had a story come up. I'll share. I had this individual who was part of our networking group, and I was originally in their chapter, and then moved to the other side of the island and became area director and stuff. And she just always didn't really care for me. I think she saw me as a threat. I think maybe her man, maybe thought her man liked me. Not at all. Or I also feel like she despised me. And I think that there was a part of it too. Yeah, we despise people sometimes because it's hard to look at ourselves. And I can remember one of my taglines was when I became a coach, consultant, trainer, was I see in people what they sometimes don't see in themselves. And that was my tagline. Okay. I wasn't doing it condescendingly. I wasn't being a jerk. It was really that's what we do as coach consultants. We see the potential inside of you, even when you don't see it inside of yourselves. And we help you have that come to fruition. And she threw a fit so bad to the director, my executive director, that I literally was asked to stop using that tagline. And so this is a story that I thought of when, because I wouldn't say that she's my worst enemy, because I don't feel I don't like people, but I don't look at them as and I know you don't either, but
yeah, no. And actually I will say I don't have the energy to have an enemy.
Oh no.
Of all the time, it takes a lot of time and energy and effort to have enemies. And I just don't want to extend the energy and effort I have. I don't want to extend towards that. I have way better things to do.
Yeah. So I guess the title of my book would be something along the lines of like, who the F does she think she is? Or like, something like it definitely have some curse words in it. We'll just say that. So, but that's a hard one. But that's what story came up. I was like, ooh, what would she title it? Because she just, ooh. Anyway, moving along. I like this question, and I love, we're asked this a lot. We ask this when we do interviews sometimes in podcasts, but what is one piece of advice you'd wish you had received starting in your career or in your business?
Oh God, I wish that someone had taken me aside and told me to stop being so good. And I say that not because I'm like, oh my God, I'm so amazing, but because I was so locked in perfectionism. I wish someone had just told me, like, you need to fail more. You need to be like, just get it done. Stop trying to be perfect about everything because it's never going to be perfect. I wish someone had said that. It wasn't until years later that I really realized how much potential I let pass by because I was too worried about whether or not it would make me seem less perfect. And I was obviously far from perfect, but I missed out on a lot of opportunities because I was afraid that other people would perceive me as less in some way than I was. I mean, to the point where like, I don't, like, this is a weird quirk, but I don't tell people when I'm getting my hair cut. Like, I don't want people to notice that I got my hair cut because I don't want there to be some like change in their perception of me. And it's like a thing that I still do. And it's a weird thing. It's a weird thing. However, in my early years of business, there were a lot of things that I kept private and secretly did. And I mean, not like clandestine, but, didn't share with people because I was afraid. And I played small because I was afraid of coming off in the wrong light or afraid of failing and then people seeing me fail. And so I played small for a long time. And I wish someone had told me, like, stop caring what people think and stop wondering if they're going to think less of you if you fail. Like, nobody cares. And that sounds so mean, like nobody cares about you and anything you're doing. But it really, like, you're your own person, your own business. It's your own life. You are the one who's most in control and most accountable for all those things. So I wish someone had told me earlier that it's really okay to fail and fall flat on your face multiple times because you're never going to get good unless you fail. Like surfing. You know what? I'm a terrible surfer and I'm still a terrible surfer, even after living on Maui for 15 years and having friends who own surf businesses, the clients who own surf businesses. I owned a surfboard, many, and I still don't consider myself to be a good surfer because I never really failed. I never wanted people to see me fail. And so I didn't go out as much. I didn't paddle out. I didn't let myself fail. I didn't push myself because I had that failure. And that's the same thing in the beginning stages of my business. I didn't push myself because I was afraid of people seeing me fail, when in the end, they're going to see me succeed because that's the kind of person I am. I might take a couple steps back, but I'm going to bounce forward. So I wish somebody had told me sooner that it's okay to suck because I would be 50,000 times further than I am now.
I love that. Mine is a little similar, but from a different angle. And it is to not play small and be bolder because and mine was not from necessarily a place of failure because I didn't have a choice. I had to make that shit happen. Mine was more from a place of a fear of success. And because I didn't have that example. And in fact, my dad would, like we grew up around that money was bad, successful people were dicks, and just like the core of all evil. And also because I knew how it was to pull myself out of that. And even my ex-husband, like he came from very humble beginnings as well. And I'll just leave it at that because that's his story is not my story to tell. And we worked our asses to pull ourselves out and give our kids a different life. And I can remember a moment in time. I was actually at a conference with a then girlfriend. She was also my coach. She was an intuitive coach. And she was like, let's go to this conference in California. We were living in Hawaii. And it was like I forget what it's called now, but there were a bunch of like woo-woo people, but business, conscious business. something or another. And we were in a breakout, we were talking about, and I don't even remember what the subject was, but it might've been like financial success or whatever. And it hit me that I was preventing myself from having the success financially, even though we had done very well. I had already started and sold a couple of businesses at this point. We had done very well. However, I was still playing small because I wanted my children to understand the work ethic and to not be handed everything and to like have that. And I say this with love, and it's not necessarily the right term, but I can't think of it, but I didn't want them to struggle, but I wanted them to like work for it, right? That understand the struggle that you need to, in order to accomplish something. And that actually prevented me from being all that I could be in my career. And I feel like I also started to definitely have made some bold moves. And for people probably listen to this, they're like, WTF, you wanted to be bolder? Yeah, I wanted to be bolder because a lot of times because I've always been the responsible one and the one, even as a child, having to take care of everybody and make sure everybody was taken care of, protected, etc. I still have that fiber to this day that it's also a Virgo thing, that I have to be responsible about some of my decisions because of the ripple effect, etc. And I'm not saying throw all shit out the window and don't be responsible, but that bolder, that's why I'm saying like to be bolder, to make some of those steps, to go out of your comfort zone more, even though I did it. And I know this sounds kind of funny, but because I have, however, I could have done so much more. And I'm not beating myself up for what I have done because I love who I am and where I'm at. And if I would have gotten that advice, I definitely think I would still be here, but I'd be so much more than what I am. I would have made so much more impact. And so, yeah, to not play small, but from a different angle. And I love that. I love that. Well, Amanda, I think we're at time. We've
done enough personal stuff. Okay.
That's enough personal stuff. I learned something new about you. I didn't know that you didn't tell people about the haircut thing. Like I learned something new.
It's weird. It's weird. There's like, I won't tell people that I've like got a new shirt or like had my nails done, or like, you'll never see me posting my new haircut. No, never. Even to this day, like it's not your business. It's private.
Wow. I know you're a very private person. Well, hopefully everybody, you got to know us a little bit more. If there's any questions that you'd like to ask us, I'm going to have Amanda do this every so often because I think that this is fun. I think that you should get to know us more and see the personal side. So if you have any questions that you'd like to hear from us, please drop it in the chat. We can always jump on one of our lives and answer some more questions, if not on our podcast. And if this podcast inspires you and you feel inclined to subscribe, listen, and share, please do so. We would love for you to go ahead and spread the word of the Pursuit of Badasserie, the podcast.
Yes. Get after it. Spread the badasserie. And thank you for joining us.
Yeah. Till next time.
Get after it.
All right, everyone. It's not enough to just listen.
Now you've got to put it into action.
We are so excited to see what you do next.
If you enjoyed our show, please leave us a review on iTunes.
And to find out more about what we're doing, visit us at thepursuitofbadasserie.com.